We're gonna ignore that lump there. I did my best to clean. It is what it is. Hello, my precious everyone. Welcome back to what in the blazes? Welcome back to Wow Mel. For today's video, I'm bringing you another one in the Meet My D&D Character series, where I not only introduce you to my D&D characters in general, but specifically the D&D characters that I cosplay. Their photos are always posted on my cosplay Instagram at wow__Mel, and today is no different. Today I will be giving you a brief history of the life of Dove Blanc. Dove Blanc is a young adult Shadar-Kai rogue who is the heiress of a criminal organization that mostly focuses on like counterfeits and auctioning off rare art and magic items, and their group is known as the White Knights. Dove also isn't technically my character to begin with. She's actually a character that my sister Sammy, aka Rose Colored Writer on Instagram and Twitch, created as part of her own character Noir's backstory. So basically her character is named Nicholas Noir. He is also part of a crime syndicate known as Nocturne that focuses on smuggling illegal goods. And his group is basically the group you go to if you want something. They will source it for you. And because the White Knights had a very similar sort of business, instead of fighting each other, the groups decided to have Noir and Dove be engaged and then later combine their group into a bigger group known as Chrome. And that all happened before the campaign started. And one other thing happened before the campaign started was Noir and Dove's wedding. They had it briefly after Noir and Dove actually had a son named Grayson. Noir and Dove were not engaged very long. They just kind of Grayson was low-key an accident, but he's still loved. The White Knights had a mole that sold them out to the Big G, who ambushed their wedding day, killed Dove's mom, killed both of Noir's parents, and killed many members of both groups. And technically, Dove was also killed, but in the wedding's attendance was a woman named Aurora, who was part of a shadow phantom clan known as the Phantom Hooves, and Aurora basically had the ability to kind of move souls in and out of bodies. So before Dove fully died, Aurora took Dove's soul and put her in the body of an actual dove because they had wedding doves there. So Dove became a dove. And unfortunately, Aurora was killed shortly after that. So Noir made it out. His son is fine too, by the way, don't worry. And Noir joined the party known as the HME, or Hot Mess Express, and his goal was basically to turn Dove back into a person. I played Dove for quite a few sessions, probably somewhere around 30. As a Dove, she's not able to speak normally, but she still retained her personality and her intellect, so it led to a lot of funny charades. And over time, as they grew in power, people were able to talk telepathically to her or got to speak with animals or sending or things like that, so they were able to communicate a little more properly. And the quest to turn Dove back into a person is just fraught with lore and world building stuff, so I'm just gonna give you the very streamlined version of it. But basically, as I mentioned, Aurora was from a clan of shadow healers, and Noir was a shadow sorcerer and hexblade warlock, and Dove was a Shadar-Kai, so there was all the shadow connection, and he hoped that if he could find the clan of shadow healers, they could turn Dove back into a person. However, these healers were in a very far area known as the Land Between Worlds. They had to pass like a world serpent, get approval to go there. They got there, looked for the clan, and the clan was like, I'm sorry, Aurora put Dove into this dove, and only Aurora can take Dove back out of the dove. Aurora or someone more powerful. And the party was like, you don't say. And that someone more powerful in question was the Raven Queen, because the Raven Queen created, at least in my world, the Shadar-Kai and also the Phantom Clan. So the group traveled to the Shadowfell, found the Fortress of Memories, and literally had to face their worst fears, and in return, Dove was put back in her original body and was a person again, which is super happy and great. But ironically, after Dove became a person again is when things started getting really complicated between her and the party. She left the group to go be with the White Knights and be with her father and be with her son Grayson and raise him while Noir was still adventuring. And it was complicated because she was only with Noir a small amount of time before the wedding because they were an arranged marriage, and even though they liked each other, they didn't really know each other on any sort of deep level. And obviously they spent more time together when she was was a bird, but those are pretty one-sided interactions. Dove was very helpless, and that's not the kind of person she is. So the bonding she and Noir had when she was a bird didn't really reflect the relationship that they would have when Dove was a person and Noir was also a person. So they couldn't spend much time together because Dove was at home getting readjusted to her life and Noir was off adventuring. And the time that they spent together started getting a little awkward. Dove is a very independent, stubborn, my way or the highway, powerful, very femme fatale woman. And the more Noir and Dove got to know each other, the more it became clear that they weren't compatible, at least not in a romantic sense. And at the same time, Noir also started developing feelings for another character named Six. And eventually, Noir broke up with Dove and later on started dating Six instead. And as you can imagine, Dove became very cold towards Noir. Her life was honestly such a mess. I mean, to begin with, Nocturne never fully accepted Dove. Then Dove became a really young, technically a teen mom. I think she was 18 or 19, so people did not respect her. Their marriage was ambushed. She lost her mom, many of her members, and she was a Dove for like almost a year, so she couldn't speak or be with her group or be with her son when her son was a baby. The kind of times you really want to be with your child to bond with them. And then she turned back into a person, but then Noir broke up with her, and shortly after that, her father died in a plague, and then she had to take over the White Knights, but not all of them respected her because her father was a middle-aged man, and again, Dove was a young mom who spent a year as a bird. They did not treat her with the respect that they treated her father with, even though she did deserve it. And because of Dove's kind of harsh, snarky exterior, she didn't really have many friends. She was really lonely. The party were some of her only friends, and she couldn't really be with them anymore, and obviously because of what happened with Noir, the party would side with Noir, so it was really awkward, and she felt very uncared for in many aspects. There were a lot of months when she spoke to the party very little and kind of fell on the wayside, but the connecting factor was still Grayson. Dove never intended to keep Noir away from Grayson, even when she and Noir were not getting along, and it did kind of force their interactions, and over time, Noir and Dove became more civil with each other, and then grew a friendship. And I always liked this about Noir and Dove's relationship, because it was very messy, but it was very real. Some things Noir did and said made you dislike Noir, and some things Dove did and said made you dislike Dove, but they were young parents, this whole fiasco taking place between like 18 and 21. They were learning and growing and adventuring and figuring out how to be parents and figuring out how to be adults and navigating their relationship with each other. Even though they really liked each other, you know, you're not always sure who you want to spend the rest of your life with at that age, and I think that was a cool storyline to go down, especially because it was not one that was planned. Sammy had initially planned for Noir and Dove to be together and stay together, but the way their personalities unfolded and the story unfolded, that just became less and less of a reality, and I think that's very natural and a cool story to explore. It felt very realistic that they both matured and grew and kind of realized they weren't a good fit for each other, and Noir was the one who broke up with her. She was very much in love with him, I think, even when he wasn't in love with her anymore, but their problems became very obvious, and I'm happy that now they're at a place where even though they're not together, they're still co-parenting and still friends. I really like that about them. And Grayson knows both of his parents always love and care about him, so that's the important part. And more recently in the campaign, Dove was having a gallery opening. Even though her group kind of makes counterfeits, Dove also makes her own original paintings, and she opened up a gallery to show off those paintings, and there she was murdered, although thankfully she was resurrected by a member of the party. And she kind of expressed how frustrated she was because she was murdered by someone the White Knights used to work with who liked her father but did not like Dove, and she just kind of lamented the way that basically her life kind of sucked. But she navigates that with everything else that she's been through with a certain amount of strength and resilience, even though once in a while she'll like break down and like tell the party these things. Dove is pretty independent. She solves a lot of her problems on her own or with her best friend Birdie. And it's like every so often when they talk to Dove again, you can see the new ways that she has grown on her own, even outside of the party's influence. There's a lot I love about Dove. She's a very strong woman, very independent, very intelligent, very creative, willing to stand up for herself, and of course she's very loving towards Grayson. She's definitely not without her faults though. I mean, she's very stubborn and she can come across as apathetic and condescending and even sometimes just straight up mean and unrelenting, but that is a product of the environment she grew up in. I mean, she grew up with her father being the leader of a mafia group. Everyone has to be very tough and watching their backs, and she grew up in a situation where women just weren't respected as much as men, weren't respected as a leader, and so she became very hardened. But she's grown a lot. When her and Noir broke up, you know, she took the time for herself, reevaluated herself and their relationship, and she grew as a person, and she was really mature, and then eventually apologized to Noir about the way she handled their breakup, and they were able to form a bit of a friendship, and I think that was really cool of her. She stepped up to the plate when her dad died and became a leader, even though she knew a lot of people didn't believe in her. And despite the group's many problems, I think she's doing a good job. Some of Dove's iconic moments in the campaign include the following. One was when she was a bird and she needed to distract some guards, so she flew down the hallway pooping, and she first told Noir not to look, which made it even funnier. The second was also when she was a bird. Noir gave Grayson to Six to hold, and he was like, "You can hold my son as long as Dove sits on your shoulder." And so Dove flew over to sit on Six's shoulder, and Six was like, "Wow, I've never held a baby before." And Dove's claws just started digging into his shoulder. She also just generally tweeted pretty angrily whenever people did stuff she didn't like, which was really funny. And she also, as a bird, stole a wristwatch off an old man. Dove is a bit of a kleptomaniac. I didn't mention that, but she is. Another iconic moment was when Noir, like, officially broke things off with her, and Noir is a Hexblade warlock of the Raven Queen, but in our lore, Noir was actually given his rapier, which was his Hexblade weapon, from the Blanc family because they're Shadar-Kai, and so they gave it to Noir as like a wedding present / sign of his devotion to Dove. And because he was breaking up with Dove, Dove asked for his Hexblade weapon back and then gave him a different weapon, which was a Hexblade that belonged to a traitor of the Raven Queen. So that was kind of, ooh, hot and spicy. Noir did not like that. And then eventually, as Dove began to forgive him and spend more time on her own and reflect a little, and honestly, I think this happened faster than it would for a lot of people, Dove apologized and returned his rapier to him. At the end of the first arc, there was this couple that were the main villains, and one of them got killed, and the other one, the party more or less let get away, not just like run off and do whatever she wanted. Her name was Sarah Runa, but they gave her to someone that she had wronged and were basically like, handle her however you want, kill her, throw her in jail, it's not our business. And that person chose to wipe her memory and make her work for them instead. And that's what the party was okay with, but that person was the one who actually created the plague that killed Dove's father, and Dove was not okay with that. So of her own volition, Dove actually kidnapped Sarah Runa, murdered her, and then dumped her corpse in front of the castle of the royal family. Dove is ruthless, and I love her for that. And Dove also was the one who murdered Nikolai, who was the one who planned the ambush on their wedding and executed that. And overall, I just think Dove is amazing. She has just peak bad bitch energy. And fortunately for her, she's kind of reached the point where she thinks she's like too good for Noir anyway, and that she's not offended he broke up with her anymore, because she just straight up thinks he has bad taste because she dumped her for Six, who is basically a clown boy. Dove has been through so much, but she doesn't show it most of the time, and when she does, you know, she'll let it out, but she'll keep pushing through. And this is not like a sign that you should keep all your problems to yourself. That's not the case, but I do like how resilient and self-sufficient Dove is, how confident she is, how she's willing to just push herself forward even when no one else is there for her. I think those are qualities I really admire in her. She is one of my favorite characters to play. I'm so glad I was able to bring her to life and tell her story in ways that neither I nor my sister could have possibly imagined. I'm going to be channeling a lot of Dove whenever I need to feel a little more confident in myself, whenever I need to push through, whenever I need to be strong. And I hope you all find ways to let a little more Dove into your life too. But thank you for watching. That was a brief history of Dove. Again, her cosplay photos are on my Instagram at wow__Mel. I will be posting a few more videos in the series of my various D&D PCs and NPCs that I cosplay, so if you're into that, be sure to like and subscribe. I post videos about Dungeons & Dragons, cosplay, video games, and the other sorts of nerdy things that I am into. So if that sounds fun, I'd love for you to join me. But that will be all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful day, my precious everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Or as Dove might say, get out of my face.